The Minister of Education for Saskatchewan, Dustin Duncan, has halted Planned Parenthood presentations from schools and called for a review on the materials being distributed to students under the premise of sexual ed. But have we gotten the full story of why? Keep watching.
This is not a one-off thing. It's a coordinated thing. And the people behind it have been all working together with different organizations to come up with this plan. And how they describe it is they describe the current sex ed curriculum, or whatever you want to call it, plan, as a shame-based plan. And they want to turn it into a pleasure-based plan. So nothing's off limit. Nothing's wrong. Nothing you shouldn't do, even including the age of the children from getting sexually active.
Drea Humphrey here, bringing you another report that will be going to our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. You can also sign and share a petition there to make efforts to stop doing so. Many of you were probably just as shocked and disgusted as I was to learn about these cards you're seeing on the screen. I'll call them porn cards. I won't dare read them out loud, but these cards were made available to grade 9 students at Lumsden High in Saskatchewan. It was a shocking story. Even more shocking is probably the fact that schools in BC allowed the same cards to be distributed to kids, even kids as young as being in elementary school. And I didn't know that, or else I would have already brought you that story. But now the spotlight is on these cards. How could this happen? And the Minister of Education in Saskatchewan has halted, no longer welcoming Planned Parenthood to come into the schools for the time being, and is saying it's time to review the materials that are coming out under the sexual education system that they have there, or curriculum. But a prominent activist in Saskatchewan is saying that this should have been done a long time ago, and that there's a lot more to these porn card stories than we've been told. Let's hear from Nadine Ness.
Okay. And joining us now is Nadine Ness, activist, or actually she considers herself more of a lobbyist. And in the particular area, at least one of them is standing up against the sexual indoctrination of kids. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, there is a lot going on in Saskatchewan when it comes to the fight, the parental rights fight, really, about the sexual agendas being pushed on kids in schools. And so I wanted to bring you on here just to see if there's another side of the story to what we're seeing in the state-backed media articles. At the beginning of this report, I already sort of recapped things, but those articles are suggesting that this is such a controversial decision that the minister is making after those horrific, I call them porn cards, were distributed, and that this is not a decision to go ahead and review things, is not a decision that's protecting trans kids. So what do you make of that?
Well, if the media is making it all about trans, I'm a little bit confused about that, because this is about the kids being exposed to sexually explicit content. And I don't know if you had a chance to go with your listeners as to how bad it is. I can't even describe it. You won't understand how bad it is until you actually go and look at the card. I used to be a police officer, and I'm a trained profiler of child sex offenders. And I was shocked by the cards. And I've heard a lot of interviews, and I was shocked. And I was shocked that that was even inside the classroom. Now, there's a lot of outrage saying that Minister Duncan overreacted. I don't think he did. I think he underreacted. And I'll get into that a little bit. But I believe a big part of that, too, is people don't get the severity of what actually occurred, because the only information they have is the statement from Planned Parenthood that is not accurate. It doesn't match the several account testimonies, or whatever you want to call it, that I got from several different parents. Right. It also, the email that the school sent out was when they initially heard about it. They didn't have all the details. So even that statement is not accurate. And the parents have asked the school to correct it and they still haven't. So you have a lot of misinformation being spread out there that's going out in the media. And unfortunately, if the parents come forward, it puts a target on their children. So they're trying to come up with a way to come forward with the truth that doesn't out their child in that school, because their child's going to continue going into that school. They're just grade 9, right? So I think a big reason is they don't have all the facts and they're minimizing what actually occurred. And they think this is an isolated incident. And we've uncovered that it's not. It's happened in 3 other schools. And we're hearing more and more of things happening in the schools that the parents are not okay with. And if I'm hearing it, I know Minister Duncan is hearing it. And I think this was just like the one thing that made the glass overflow, like that one drop that was just too much. And what he's doing is he's removing them from the school because they've done a really big mistake. And then he's going to review everything that does get included. So I don't know to what extent that's going to go. I don't know if it's going to review if they're going to implement SOGI in Saskatchewan or not, because that's also in the plans of coming in, at least in 2 school boards, including the one my kids go to and the one I live in, which are separate. So both of them have been targeted. So I don't know if it's going to look at evaluating that. But the part that I like about his minister's directive is the part where he talks about how important it is to involve parents and hear from parents as to what they want their kids exposed to, whether it's age appropriate or whether it matches the family's value. And I think, and I don't know if it's because of COVID, but I think there's this mentality that almost like the school owns your children, that they know better, like they know more or better what's best for your kids. And COVID kind of created an environment where the parents weren't allowed in anymore. They weren't kind of involved anymore. And that's having ripple effects, I think. And parents now are wanting to get back involved. And they're not being accepted by the schools. I know numerous parents that have asked to do presentations for the school board, and they're being denied. Any concerns that's brought forward, if it doesn't fit the woke agenda, it gets shut down. And that's what I'm hearing from a lot of really frustrated parents. So I see this as a good move to consult the public. And instead of pleasing the media, and when I say the media, I mean the mainstream media, the government shouldn't be doing what the media wants them to do. The government should be doing what the people want them to do.
Right.
And unfortunately, that doesn't match. The media is representing a picture of a province that's not accurate to what people actually want. So we hear it all the time.
Well, and what is there to hide? Reviewing a health and wellness program, and whether or not SOGI, for those of you who are watching and you don't know what that term is, SOGI is the sexual orientation curriculum that's caused many concerns with many parents out in British Columbia for years now. So what's the concern of combing through this, especially if an incident like these porn cards, I call them, can make it in the hands of children during school? You mentioned you get a feeling, whether it's COVID or not, that there's sort of this tug of war between the state sort of institution and the parents. And it reminds me that New Brunswick is also, reviewing their sort of curriculum in this area too. But before that, the former education minister there, Dominic Cardy, he said it plain as day that the province who owns the kids. Let's take a look.
How can you say it's our right to vaccinate our children? It's our children, not yours.
They are our provinces.
Doesn't matter.
No, they're not the state's children. They are not the state's children. That is absolutely against everything. You are absolutely.
He doesn't even have children of his
You wanted
own.
to get me going, and you did, because you are absolutely disgracing parental rights here. You are a human rights violator.
This is not a one-off thing. It's a coordinated thing. And the people behind it have been all working together with different organizations to come up with this plan. And how they describe it is they describe the current sex ed curriculum, or whatever you want to call it, plan, as a shame-based plan. And they want to turn it into a pleasure-based plan. So nothing's off limit. Nothing's wrong. Nothing you shouldn't do, even including the age of the children from getting sexually active. So once you start digging into what these organizations' main goal or priorities are, you start getting really, really concerned. So that'll be coming up probably in the next week or so.
Well, definitely keep us in the loop. We've been doing reports on this at our special website called stopclassroomgrooming.com. So we'd love to add that information to there as well. Now, I hear what you're saying. You think that the education minister has taken a bit too long to get to this point. You're probably right. But again, from out here in BC, let's take it back to those cards already being distributed here in this province. I wasn't aware of that. So we're just having light. Many of us are seeing light on that now. But that was as long ago as 2019 that British Columbia knew that those cards got in the hands of children, and they are not reviewing the SOGI 123, despite all the many parents who have asked that or just asked to be able to simply opt out. So I will give your education minister a little bit of credit where credit is due. You have a lot of information, so thanks for giving us the other side of the story on this issue. But while I have you here, there was a tweet that I saw where something else crazy is going on in your area. I think it was a high school, and students were pulled to the office. And am I right that the police were called? Why don't you tell us how you got a hold of the paper and what that was all about?
Well, with the Lumsden incident, there's a lot of parents that have been messaging me of things that are happening in their school. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those messages that I got. And I was informed that there was a flyer placed on a hallway or somewhere, a bulletin board, and other kids, and it said, "I'm straight and proud." And other kids signed this document. They were pulled into, initially I reported the principal's office because that's what I was told. However, I was informed that it was the grade 9 vice principal's office.
Okay.
And as well with the teacher, and they contacted the RCMP who attended. And some children had different experiences, but some were questioned by police. Some were threatened that this was borderline hate crime, saying if this had been, I'm white and I'm proud, that would have been a hate crime where they could have been arrested. Yeah. So the thing is, I don't think it had the effect that they intended it to have. They meant to shame the kids, but the kids are not ashamed of their sexual orientation. They are straight and they are proud of it. And I was told with everything coming into the schools, they feel like you can't even say that anymore. So for them, it was like a moment of empowerment and say, I'm not going to be ashamed. I'm not going to be pushed back down. I'm just going to do this. And they're standing on their ground that they didn't do anything wrong. And what I'm hearing from the parents that I've spoken to, they're actually quite proud of their kids. Yeah. I think people are just tired. You have the other side saying, oh, we're seeing a lot of backlash. We're seeing a lot of people being hateful. But the problem is they're being backed into a corner. They're being forced to participate in things that may not match their family values or their faith. And when you push people into a corner, sometimes they fight back. So I think if you don't want to receive that fight back, don't push. Just let people be. They talk about inclusion and equality. But we're not seeing the actions of inclusion and equality. What happened to these kids is a perfect example. Twist that around. If somebody said, I'm gay and I'm proud, the reaction would have been cheering. If they're going to preach that they want inclusion and equality, their behavior and their actions should follow that.
Absolutely. I mean, they're allowed to put the hallways can be coated with pride, raising flags, and someone can't say, I'm straight and proud. Well, you've hit it on the nail, I think, with what this is about. And it's sad to see all the division. Just teach kids academics you won't see this type of division happening either, right? You know, that's what parents want their kids to go to school for. But that's not the reality of what we're seeing today. Thank you so much for giving us some more insight. Keep in touch. Let me know what's happening next out in your province, and pray for us in BC.
I will. Okay. Thank you.
Enough is enough. We cannot let the sexualization of kids be normalized any longer. Go to stopclassroomgrooming.com, sign and share the petition there. Also share the URL so more can see the stories like this and be aware, so we can start to see change. If you appreciate that Rebel News has been covering this important topic, you can also chip in a few bucks there to help us keep the lights on and keep bringing you the other side of the story, stories just like this. That's stopclassroomgrooming.com.